Hi, everyone. Welcome to the MAP Plan. I'm Deborah Hamilton, and this is the MAP community. Hi, Ingrid. Hi, Susan. We meet every Wednesday to talk about how to make a plan for your pet. I'm so glad to see Ingrid here and Susan, and more will join us, I'm sure. But I always start on time because everyone's time is so important. So, without further ado, I'm Deborah Hamilton of Hamilton Law and Mediation and the Why Do Pets Matter podcast and the MAP community call. So here we have Rose and now we have Connie. So we're getting on a roll. I'm so glad to be here. What we do during this half hour is we talk about things we need to know to keep our pets safe because navigating the journey your pet takes when you can't care for it is why we all meet every week to make sure we are taking one more step forward to making that plan work. So, for those of you who are new or who are rejoining us, remember what MAP stands for. It stands for making a plan, addressing the needs of your pet, appointing caregivers, and then publishing that plan. During COVID, we've discovered that there are a few easy to take steps that assure that your pet is safe. God forbid you should get sick. One of them is to make sure there is a note on the door or on your refrigerator so that if, God forbid, you're taken to the hospital, the EMS people know that there is someone close by who will take care of your pets for you. And we learned during COVID that all of your caregivers have to be, at least one of them has to be close by so that they can step in so your dogs are not taken to animal care and control. It is something we really understand might need to be done if you can't find someone nearby. But every week we work on who's nearby that you can ask to help you keep your dogs in the house until someone can come and get them. So I am going to check in with everybody and see how everybody's doing today. I'm going to start with Ingrid. Ingrid is a good friend of the MAP community because she actually held an entire live program pre-COVID for people to make a plan for their pets. So how are you doing, Ingrid?
I'm doing better, thank you. How are you? It's been a long time. I apologize. I usually Wednesday nights haven't been good, but I've listened to some of your replays, and as always, spot on. So,
Well,
nice
thank
seeing you.
you. Tell us what pets you have because I know you have a few pets.
So I have one miniature horse and three little small dogs myself, but I do pet care professionally. So
Right. Right. And so I met Ingrid because we were at a seniors event and she helps people who are older take care of their pets as well. And she thought it was really a good collaborative effort for us to start to work together. So post COVID, we'll probably be doing more. But for now, we are all trying to survive COVID. I think you've been well, Ingrid, correct?
well, last year was not a good health year, not COVID related, but yeah,
Well,
I'm better. Thank you.
good.
How about you?
Well, I've missed everything, thank God. So
Thank God. Yes.
and unfortunately, because people are so anxious over their pets, my practice in conflict resolution has really skyrocketed between
Oh,
veterinarians and their clients and co-owners and it just and neighbors, and so it's been a little busy. But my heart is here because as we navigated COVID, we realized that we needed a caregiver who was right here because my caregivers were in Connecticut, New Jersey, and Maryland, which didn't help very much when you couldn't get into New York. Who knew? But we now know, and so we've updated the MAP plan to make sure that we meet the needs of everyone who wants to make one. So thank you, Ingrid, for coming back, and we hope to see
thank
you.
you.
We're here every Wednesday, and we have a great group. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller, but I'm here
Yeah,
every week. We
it's
just
wonderful.
we
Keep it
just
going.
yeah,
Thank you.
we just got to work. We just finished up a workshop, so I'm going to check in with Susan to see how things are going. Susan, how did the workshop go? I mean,
Um,
how did the plans that you were working on during the
I'm
week go?
still working on them, Deborah, but I did notify our estate attorney that we wanted to incorporate this into I haven't heard back from him.
He's probably pulling his hair out of his head. Did you tell him that he could speak with me so I could calm him down?
Uh, No, but I'll send him another email and let him know. Should I give him your phone number?
Either my phone number or my email, because it is very hard for trust and estate attorneys to understand what this is.
Sure.
Not because they're ignorant, but because they just don't know. And so when I do a workshop, I always help the attorneys for my participants understand what it is they did over the weekend to put their
Right.
MAP plan together.
Right.
So I'm happy to speak with him.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think you're probably right that he is tearing his hair out trying to understand what this is. So
Yeah, I tend to make people feel a little calmer once they speak to me when they're attorneys, because they really don't want to talk about animals, because talking about animals is an emotional thing they'd like to avoid like the plague. So it is something that I have taken off their plates, and they're happy about that. So no worries. So
Okay.
good, you've taken a few steps forward. Awesome.
trying.
A plus. A plus. Hi, Sally. How are you now that you're sort of one dog low? Unmute.
It's very lonesome, one dog low, but I know she's in great hands and happy and healthy. And so that makes me feel fabulous. And everyone was asking where she was. So I'm like Susan. I'm like working baby step by baby step, trying to think of every single thing. And it was great having a second dog here, because then I realized other things I needed for the one and only dog who's always here. So yeah, a win-win. We're moving forward.
And I also have a longer term person I'm going to share with you later on who lives up the street in Massachusetts. In the event your first person can't take them, this or second person can't take them, this person is a very dear friend of mine who has golden retrievers in Massachusetts. And so if worse comes to worse, she will be there, and she's always got the opportunity to take dogs in case someone can't. So, you know, we are always looking for those 3 or 4 people who will take our dogs long-term, short-term, or miniature horses, long-term, short-term. They're not easy, those mini horses. You got to really figure that out because it is important to make sure that the animal has a place to go in the event they need it. So I know that there is one dog in Pleasantville who is not necessarily thrilled with the dinner arrangements, because she wasn't cooked for, although I have been giving her a little more chicken and beef. So she said, okay, so you're not as bad as you were before I left. But, you know, I have to say it's my dog that went to stay with Sally. So my dog never comes back with her tail wagging. She always goes with her tail wagging, but she never comes back with her tail wagging. So I know that she's in good hands. Hey, Connie, how are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, long time no see. This is the 4th Zoom I've been on today.
Oh my God. You sound like me.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought of you. Yes. And my dogs are all exhausted from, Zooming with me. But first of all, I want to let everyone know that Deborah helped my National Breed Club, Soft-Coated Wheaten Terrier Club of America, of which I am treasurer, God help me, insanity personified. But we were having some thorny issues with our membership. We had a virtual town hall last night that had 100 participants on Zoom. Deborah was our mediator, and she was fabulous. And then and she met with all of us prior to the town hall, gave us, some marching orders, homework assignments, and guidance. It all paid off last night beautifully. And then she was on a debrief this morning, my first Zoom of the morning. And at any rate, we are just eternally grateful. And I have also sent all of my friends and colleagues, my closest personal friends, information on this session for MAAP. And I am hoping that potentially in the future, you heard that we're having a series of educational webinars. I'm hoping that maybe, Deborah, we can chat about having you on a webinar for our membership on MAAP, because I think especially now in the era of COVID, and there are very few spring chickens in our midst, that it would be very timely. So I just wanted to let everybody know that Deborah has really helped my
I branched out. I actually did that conflict resolution that I do full time. This is my love. So absolutely, I'll be happy to help with the club or anyone else who wants to. As Ingrid knows, I hold these events all over the place because it really is important for people to know how to care for their pets. Horse people are the worst people. I love them. Don't anyone who's listening to this don't think I don't love horse people, but they are like the worst people to make a plan for their pets. And those are some of the most difficult animals to place, and often find themselves in dire straits. So really, anybody who knows anybody, I am happy to do any Zoom program because it really is important. And for the Breed Club, you might also think about incorporating how to write a co-ownership agreement so that it works long-term as opposed to just shaking hands. Another shake hand that goes down the toilet when people don't talk to each other. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it really is. It's really important. I mean, I have to tell you. So tonight I wanted to talk about something that is in the top of the news, right? So all of us have our pets. The A stands for address the needs of your pet, right? So I think it's Major, right? Isn't that President Biden's dog who did a little bit
Got
of
banished.
a nibble on
Yes.
someone? This is his rescue dog, which of course everyone was like, well, he's a rescue dog. Well, he's a rescue dog, but this is a whole new environment for him. And we all know how our dogs react in a new environment. And often we don't give them the space or the time to adjust from their home, which I think that probably President Biden's house in Delaware is a little smaller than the White House and has a little fewer people. Even now that he's president, I think he still has fewer people in his house in Delaware than he would have in the White House. And German Shepherds are protective animals. That's their nature. That is what they were bred to do. My Irish setter bred to hunt pheasant. The Wheatons bred to hunt as well, I think, right?
They are ratters, but their primary job was all around farm dogs in Ireland, and they are primarily cattle and sheep herders. And I have put herding titles on my Wheatons before.
Right. And of course, when you have a herding dog, you have to be careful when you put them in a group of children because they herd them.
They herd.
And children get a little intimidated by herding dogs.
They do. Yes, they do.
And Catans, Susan, what are Catans bred for? Other than looking really good?
Well, I'm not really sure about that. I was attracted to the fact that they're great family dogs. They're great lap dogs. They love to sit in your lap. We'll
have to look that up for next time because every dog at some point in its life, which is why a lot of people say don't cut their tails anymore, don't cut their ears anymore. But there was a reason why their tails and ears were cut when they were working. And so there's usually something that's going on that they have those things done. So Irish setters hunt. And Ingrid, do your dogs do it? Are they they're mixed breeds, but it doesn't matter. What are they mixed in? What could their personalities be? Oh, Yorkies. Is it a Yorkie?
He is
A
a
Silkie?
Yorkie Terrier.
Yeah.
Terror,
Yeah.
yes.
A 4-pound terror that thinks he's a shepherd.
So I have to, and what's the other one?
I have like a Yorkie Poo and he's like a mix, some sort of other little, all small. I always had a shepherd with small breed. I used to always have shepherds, but
and so you know better than anybody that shepherds can definitely feel a little territorial.
yes, they I think they're a wonderful breed, but they are, they can be protective. They're loyal. They're smart. Who knows if he bit them for, they pick up on.
They pick up on stuff. I always think that a dog does what a dog does because they know something we don't know. They have that sixth sense. And so I'm thinking that removing him and giving him a break was very brilliant. That was wonderful. And I read that they are going to bring him back. They're just simply going to bring him back with the understanding, I hope, and with the help of someone who's familiar with German Shepherds and not condemning of German Shepherds, that when you're around him, make sure you let him see you, make sure some people say, well, I don't want to have a dog that I can't be in a room with, or I can't bring everywhere. And that's fine. And then don't get a German Shepherd, because that's why you get a golden retriever, or a lab. But they can also have moments. I mean, I take a walk on the road and there's a golden retriever who hits the fence at 90 miles an hour. And I think if she ever got out, she would rip me and Roxy limb from limb. So, everybody has a little personality quirk. But I wanted to bring up Max because that's what you need to put in. And I'm sure the Bidens just haven't come to the MAAP program. And so they don't know. They don't know that you have to address the needs of your pet and the needs of Major, as opposed to the other dog's name, which is Champ. So Champ's older. So his ability to be cranky is probably more linked to arthritis than to protectiveness, right? If you get in his way, you might, or you whatever.
And he was in the White House for 8 years too. Don't forget, Joe used to take him to work.
Right. So he's coming back home where Major hasn't been there. So this is just an adjustment kind of thing. So it's really important that when we address the needs of our pets, we don't not say something that we've observed so that our dog isn't labeled. You have a herding dog, you got to say whether or not they tend to herd. I mean, there are some dogs, some hounds, my dachshunds would take off for parts unknown if they were able to smell some sort of an animal, a rodent or something. And I'm sure that, I know Connie trains her dogs in obedience and agility and rally, so they probably come when they're called. But if she didn't, their noses would take over and they'd be gone. I always say my dogs are always on leashes, and people say to me, well, why don't you train your dogs? And I go, well, I do train my dogs, but they only have to not listen to me once, and then they might die. And so I'm the kind of person who, I put them in a crate in the truck. Some people don't have cars or trucks that take crates, but I put my dogs in crates when they're in the truck because that's safe. But if they're in the car, I like to have them in a seatbelt or something that's hooked to the seatbelt, so that if God forbid something happens, there's this level of not going through the windshield like a torpedo from the back seat. And especially with little dogs like the Catan or the Yorkie, you put them in one of those little Sherpa bags on the floor of the car, and it's great. I always get sort of unnerved and try to hold myself back when I see the little Yorkies or Catans hanging their heads out the driver's side window while the person's driving. And I just want to say, if you hit the steering wheel because you have an accident and the dog is between you and the steering wheel, what do you think is going to happen? I'm just saying. So it's a little bit of a pet peeve for me. And I know that some people don't have crates, don't want their dogs in crates. I just always think that, if God forbid you roll or you smash into something, you've given them a little bit of extra cushioning to stay safe. So that's what I do. So
it's remember, a good practice also, because a lot of dogs get away in the event of an accident and they don't come back. They're traumatized, and sometimes they never get them back.
Well, 2 weeks ago, it's funny you say that. 2 weeks ago, what I talked about was that a gentleman had an accident by Floyd Bennett Field in New York, and his beautiful canine Corso took off, and they were trying to find. Now it's not easy to lose a canine Corso. It's not like a Yorkie. Yorkies can hide under things. Canine Corso, not so much. When you see that dog coming, you do run the other way. But they were trying to find the canine Corso, and they finally did, thank God. But it took 3 days to find the canine Corso, and thank
lucky
God
they got him back.
Yeah.
He didn't end up in the wrong hands in the city.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it was great they got him back, and it was all over Facebook. But if you do, the least you should do is have them on a leash in the car. And maybe you don't want to tie the leash to something. I would suggest you do, but you don't have to. Then, a seatbelt if you can, with a harness or something, because that'll keep them from projectiling through the front window. And of course, if you do have the ability, because you're crazy like Connie and I, and have probably a minivan or something that you have crates in instead of anything else, and there are hardly any seats, then you put them in the crate. It just is, what we do. There's the dog car, and I buy the dog car to make sure I have enough spaces for the dogs to leave in the case of an emergency, which of course is part of the MAAP plan. if the hurricane is coming, or with Connie lives in California, if the fire's coming, she needs to be ready to go in a moment's notice. And so this is why her car is always packed. The crates are always up. For Sally and I, it's hurricanes. And for Ingrid, it's hurricanes. It's, snowstorms with electricity going out. Do you have to go? Yeah, well, you always have that plan. And Susan also is a New Yorker, right? Susan, you're from New York.
I'm a native New Yorker, but live in Virginia now. So.
Oh, okay. So you have the hurricanes as well. You have the East Coast stuff, the hurricanes. This is just something that you really need to keep track of. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because my dear friend and fellow member here, Connie, sent me 2 stories this week that I needed to share. One was 2 8-year-old pit bulls, which of course we know are not easily rehomed. The owner became ill, and they're in Fort Worth, Texas, not the best place to be when you need a new home, because they usually bring dogs from the south to the north, because there are more homes for rescue dogs in the north than in the south. And so they bring the dogs up. Well, these are 2 bonded pairs. It's a boy and a girl. Roxy, which of course ripped my heart out, and General was the dog's name, and they're 8 years old, and the owner is sick, and so they need to be rehomed. So I put it out on my Facebook page, and if you see it on my Facebook page, if you want to share it, because it is really takes a village to find 8-year-old dogs who are pit bulls, new homes. And I think Roxy is sort of a piece of cake, and General might have a few little quirks. They did write a detailed description, thank you God, of their personalities. But this way you really, if they had made a plan, maybe the dogs would have still ended up in animal care and control in Fort Worth, but maybe not. And then they would have had a soft landing. And the other one was in Wethersfield, Connecticut, a beautiful German Shepherd that a friend of mine sent me. And she said, maybe this one should take Major's place at the White House. It's a female German Shepherd named Sandy, and she's 4 years old. And she needs a new home. So she's looking for a new home because her owners, nobody's sick. They just have a family crisis that's happened where they need to rehome the dog. It could be a lost job, lost apartment. Everybody is in incredibly difficult situations now. And so making sure that you have a plan. You never want to give your dog away. I never want to give my dog away. I've spoken about the woman who lived when she wasn't supposed to, whose dogs were given away. Ingrid, you didn't hear that story, but everyone else has. I'm working with 4 people who actually acted in the best interest of the pets, and what they believed was what this woman would have wanted them to do in this instance, because the doctor said she likely would not live. And so they placed the dogs after about 6 weeks in a kennel. And she lived, and she came home about 4 months later and wanted to know where her dogs were. And of course, the people who adopted them didn't want to give them back, because when they were adopted, they said, no, you'll never have to give them back. So there's a big rigmarole, and everybody understands the emotional piece on both sides of this story, but there was no written direction. So she said, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. And the attorney and the power of attorney person and the healthcare proxy said, no, this is what you told us you wanted us to do. And she goes, no, but nothing was written down. Nothing. Right. So unless you write it down, what you want to have done with your pet is not going to happen. And the people you want to get your pets, not going to happen. Because if you don't have it in writing, they can't go to animal care and control and get the dogs out for you. If they don't have a piece of paper that says, Deborah Hamilton has permission to get Athena out of the animal care and control if something happens to me.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Is there an actual document? Is it state to state, or is there a general document that can be used,
Well, there's a general document in the MAAP workshop. So everybody got that for the MAAP workshop. But, you can make one on your own. It just simply, and I think you got it during the program we did together. And if you didn't, let me know and I'll send you another one.
All right.
because it should say that in the case of an emergency, I've appointed Susan and Sally and Connie to take care of my pets. Susan's first because she lives closer, and then Connie because she lives a little further away, and then Sally. And if God forbid something happens and none of them can come, then I've also got the contact at Yorkshire Terrier Club of America Rescue so that she can go to someone who's looking for a Yorkie. And if you have a Poodle Yorkie mix, then contact Poodle and Yorkie Clubs of America and say, listen, I've got this mix. You know, it's not perfect, but maybe somebody in the Poodle Club will want it. Somebody in the Yorkie Club will want it because, you know, that's your fail safe. Or, you know, the shelter you might have picked them up from. You always have to read the contracts. I'm a big, you know, read your contract because you have to know what the rescue or the breeder has told you to do with the dog if something were to happen to you. In the event of this woman who didn't die, in the contract it said if she could not take care of the dogs, they were supposed to be returned to her. Problem was, she read that as if I die, that means I can't take care of them. If I'm in the hospital and I've made arrangements for someone to take care of them, that's not the same thing. Well, to the breeders, it meant, well, if she couldn't take care of them, then they come back to me. Again, you know, no clarity on what you mean by what you say in your contract drives me nuts. So
I have to fine tune my own then, because
Yeah.
I do have, you know, I've had it for years, you know.
well, you should always review it every year because the personalities of the
Right,
dogs
said that.
change, the medication of the dogs change,
Sure.
the persnickety-ness of the dogs change. So you really need to, you know, update it every year because Connie has 3 Wheatons. One's a grandma, one's the mother, and one's the son, the grandson or son. And so all 3 of them, I would venture to say, Connie, have different personalities.
Totally. Absolutely. Totally. And I will tell you that the grandma is, I mean, she was Miss Placid as a much younger dog. She had a very, very even temperament, and she still does. And she is a certified therapy dog. And in normal times, we used to go to LA City and county libraries and read with school kids, and she loved them. And she gets along great with her daughter, who's the middle one. We're talking almost 11, almost 7, and almost 2. They're all March Madness kids,
Yes.
born within 10 days of each other. So at any rate, the grandma, she has gotten older, especially because she is now the matriarch, and because the grandson went through, you know, stupid teenage boy period, like male dogs do. She has gotten to be grumpy Grammy. And so her personality has changed too. So absolutely, they go through life stage personality changes.
Yeah, they do. And so you really need to pay attention to the changes. Also, you need to pay attention if they're afraid of lightning and thunder, or if they're afraid of the vacuum, or whatever it is, you really need to make sure you let people know. It just makes that transition so much easier for the dogs. I mean, it makes it easy for the humans too, but it makes it so much easier for the dogs. And being able to understand what, you know, Major is going through right now with all the changes in his life. And I think they only rescued him about 18 months ago, not even, maybe 6 months ago. So he's still adjusting to the Bidens of Delaware, and now they're the Bidens of Washington, D.C. And, you know, his past is whatever that person wrote down when they dropped him off. And of course, I have to say that that's not necessarily always truthful. So you really need to take at least a year or 2 if you rescue a dog to understand its idiosyncrasies, and expose it to different things. Not all of us will expose it to the White House and Secret Service and thousands of people walking through our doors. But if we did, we would know, because we're part of the MAAP group, that, you know, we would take care to make sure that everybody knew, please don't, please take a minute. And I'm sure that, you know, they'll do that now. And if anybody knows the Bidens and you want them to have me help them make a plan for the dog, I'm happy to do it, because it really does take a village when you're rescuing a dog, especially a dog that is, you know, bred for a certain type of thing, and you don't know its history. So you don't know who had it before, and maybe they didn't train it. I mean, it is something to think about. So before we wrap up for the night, because it's already a half hour, I cannot believe it. Any questions for me that you guys have that you need me to help you answer? You know, I'm always available. Drop me an email, because you have the message, or do you have any questions?
Deborah, I don't know if this is related, but what do you recommend if you're out taking your dog for a walk and you're approached by a dog that's not on a leash or not with anyone? Is there some strategy or something?
So for your dog, picking her up might be the best thing because she's smaller. My dog, that's never happening for Roxy. Maybe Athena, she's lighter, but it's not happening for me and Roxy. So if you are walking, it sometimes is really worth it to purchase one of those hiking sticks or poles so that you can really defend your dog. I actually had that happen. This was on one of these programs a few weeks ago. Two beagles were being walked by their owner, I presume, and of course they saw Roxy and ripped the flexi lead out of their person's hands, and both of them come charging at Roxy, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh, this isn't going to end well," because Roxy is not one to be charged on. That's in her address the needs of the pet. She doesn't like little white dogs. So Susan, I would never be able to take your dog Maggie because Roxy does not like little white dogs.
I understand. I don't take it personally.
Yeah, don't take it personally. And then, of course, she has two dogs running at her. She's on a leash and she's with her mother who she wants to defend. So these are three things that will make it really difficult for Roxy to step back and say, "Oh, let me take a minute. Let me take a breath." You know, we know to do that, but they don't know to do that. So what I did was I put myself between her and the other dogs. And I held her collar tight so she couldn't bite them because I didn't want her to start something and then it would be 2 against 1. And if they bit her, I would be in a position to grab them because only one of my hands was tied up with Roxy. The other one was free that I could grab at least one of them. But the other thing you can do is you can bring, I know people bring some mace or things like that to spray on dogs if they walk in areas where animals might come out or dogs might come out. I actually do not walk on a block that's right by this house because 2 of the people on the block don't put their dogs on leashes. So when I would come around the corner, Hazel, great name, would come running off her porch at the dogs. And I was like, just doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, they'd apologize and they'd call Hazel and I'm like, oh my God. So and then there was a black lab that would come out and he was sometimes walked by his children. So he lives in a family with little kids. So he outweighs them by about 50 pounds. They're all like toothpicks, these kids, and this, massive Labrador Retriever male. And, he would pull and they'd drop the leash and he'd come running and he was gentle as a lamb. However, again, when a dog comes running up to you with your dogs are going to be protective of their owners. So the nicest dog in the universe who could run with every dog at the dog park will not necessarily be that dog on the end of a leash with you standing there.
Right.
Simply because they're protecting you. So either change where you walk or, go to REI. They have those wonderful, mountain climbing poles that you can just take. And of course, since we're all over 21 on this call, I think I can say that with some accuracy. We can trip and fall. So having that stick with us can also pick us up off the ground if God forbid we trip and fall. So I don't say go around hitting everybody's dog, but it really does help if the only place you can walk is with someone who lets their dog run around without. I'm moving to North Carolina and both of the people on the block let their dogs roam the area. They've been on my lawn already. And I'm like, okay, so I'm the neighbor who's putting up the fence. Because I just, I need to keep my dog safe. I understand that I can't tell you what to do and you've been doing it for years and I'm new on the block, but I will make sure I keep my dog safe. And when I walk, I'll walk the other way. Does that help, Susan? I know it's not a perfect answer.
It does. I kind of wondered about it because, dogs do get loose. They escape from their houses and whatnot. Anything can happen. And it just is something that makes me nervous.
Yeah, well, remember we spoke last week or the week before about the pit bull who was put to sleep after attacking a dog. And the woman whose dog was attacked felt really bad because she knew that this family loved this dog. Right. They just didn't tie it up. They had a lead off the front porch, but, people get lazy and complacent and don't put it on. And her dog had had a run-in with this dog before, but her brother was walking the dog. And when the dog came, he kicked the dog. So the dog ran away, didn't attack her dog. But the second time, she didn't think of that. And it isn't, so I don't believe women, the first thing they're going to do is kick a dog, although maybe we should think of that. We don't want to hurt a dog. We love dogs, so we don't necessarily kick a dog. But because her brother kicked the dog took off and didn't attack the dog. I'm not advocating kicking anybody's dog, but if your dog is in jeopardy, you might need to do something that's, new and interesting. But that dog was put to sleep, and they wrote about that story, I can tell you, 5 times in the New York Times over a 4-month period, because the woman was a New York Times writer whose dog was attacked. And so she wrote about the attack, and then she wrote about the, hearing and trial and everything for the dog. And then she wrote about the dog being put to sleep. And then she wrote about how it hurt her so deeply that the dog had to be put to sleep because nobody was paying attention to that dog's needs. He should have been on a leash. He should have been in a fenced in yard. His parents failed him because they didn't keep him safe in an area that kept him from being able to get out and get other dogs. And there are Houdinis. I don't know how many of you have owned Houdinis, but there are Houdinis, and sometimes fences don't work. And that's why I don't necessarily agree with, non-tether laws, because the option is that the dog gets out and either gets hurt or hurts another dog. So, if you have a backyard, I don't want them out in the hot sun, and I don't want them out in the freezing cold. But if this is a second level of keeping them safe for themselves and from themselves, then it's something we should consider allowing, given the dogs. So any other questions?
No, just a comment. I was just going to say there's actually a little device that you could carry on you if you don't want to carry a pole. It's a high frequency. It does work. It's called a dazer. It doesn't hurt them, but it can, sort of ward off an animal that's approaching, whether wildlife or somebody's roaming dog.
That's great. Thank you, Ingrid, because I was going to say you can also have a whistle.
It does work.
Yeah. Because you really want something that's easy to carry.
Fairly inexpensive too.
Yeah, it's easy to carry.
Easy to carry. Yeah.
Because this woman said she always carried mace with her, but she didn't carry it that day because it's so bulky. And that is always, you have to, if you're going to buy it, bring it with you. Do not leave it at home, because the day you leave it at home is the day the dog's going to come off the porch.
Right.
So.
Daycare. Okay, great.
Yep.
I just had one final comment, Susan. I usually walk with 2 or 3 dogs, 3 medium-sized terriers, and they are very protective of me, and that's what they were bred to do, to protect the homestead in Ireland. So what I would suggest, what I always do when a dog comes charging at mine, off lead from across the street, and I will immediately, and it's the old, if you see something, say something, challenge the owner and just say, your dog is off lead. I cannot guarantee what mine will do because they will protect me. So please get your dog on lead. I have the added benefit of, in California, we have a statewide leash law.
Right.
North, from the very north Oregon border down to Mexico. So I always cite that. And if you do have a statewide leash law or even a local leash law, tell the people your dog's supposed to be on a leash, period.
Yeah.
So that helps too. That's
here in Virginia too, but dogs do get loose. I mean, things do happen. So.
Right. But if the owner is, the kind that I said where, oh, my dogs are friendly. No, don't.
Yeah, my dogs are never friendly, but I never say they're unfriendly. I just say when she's on a leash, she's very protective of me. So let's keep the distance. And COVID was a great excuse, because I said, nope, nobody's meeting anybody with COVID. And I have to say that Roxy now, and I don't know how you found she was, Sally, when you walked her, but she really doesn't like anybody she meets on the road. She likes Athena, but not anybody else. So she doesn't like anybody anymore. When I first started walking them at the beginning, everything was hunky-dory. And now, a year in, she really doesn't want to meet anybody or wants to see anybody. She's like, you keep your distance. And so I've really respected that she's given me the nod. And I say, she's not really friendly today. She's not feeling herself today. And that way they keep it. I love that you say that, you know, they're really protective of me and I don't want anything to happen to any of them, because it really is important to me. And people do need to know, because Virginia and Connecticut, New York all have leash laws, which mean nothing sometimes to some people who feel their dogs are so well behaved. They can always let them off the leash. And as I said at the beginning, they only have to not listen to you once. And then you could lose them. You could lose them because they attack another dog, or because, God forbid, they get hit by a car.
Right.
So if there are no more questions, I am so grateful all of you are here. Please don't hesitate to write and call. Come back again every Wednesday, 6:30. This is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and of course, this MAP community I'm so grateful to be a part of. So you guys all take care.